All right, we'll get things underway here. I want to thank everyone who's joining us here today for this DeKalb County local update meeting. My name is Tyler Ford. I'm Director of Mentors with tnAchieves. And really want to start by just saying thank you for joining us today. We're happy to be able to have this opportunity to share with you a little bit of the progress we're making in your community, as well as across the state. We also just want to fill you on some new programming we have for students and some new opportunities that students have to connect with tnAchieves and receive support through their college going process. So really happy to be here with you today. I'm really appreciative for you taking the time out of your day to join us. Now, if you do have any questions during today's sessions, feel free to jump in with those. You're welcome to unmute yourself at any point. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Hall. Join us, or welcome to ask questions at any point. Type those in the chat, unmute yourself. It's a small group, so happy to take those questions and happy to make sure that those are answered. But really where I want to start is just by providing a little bit of background on the work that tnAchieves does. So tnAchieves is a nonprofit organization that partners with the state of Tennessee to administer Tennessee Promise in 90 of the state's 95 counties. What that essentially means is in those 90 counties, we are making sure students are meeting their deadlines, making sure students are up to date on their requirements, and just making sure that students are on the right path with regards to college going. We've had the opportunity since the program's inception to work with more than 440,000 students, as well as 71,000 volunteers. We also every year are able to work with about 600 high schools across the state, as well as 67 eligible post-secondary institutions. So really, we have been fortunate since 2008 when the program began to work with hundreds of thousands of students across the state and many volunteers across the state. And we're excited to continue doing that work into 2022. Want to share a little bit about the individual components of this program. So obviously the Tennessee Promise is the scholarship we're working with. It's probably the banner piece of our work, the piece that most people are really familiar with. That is, of course, the state's last dollar scholarship opportunity. This is a chance that provides high school seniors anywhere in the state of Tennessee to enroll in community or technical college and do so tuition and mandatory fee free. That's an opportunity that not every student in every state across the country has the chance to do. But here in Tennessee, our seniors do have that opportunity. And it's something we're really leading the way in, as a matter of fact. We understand, though, that many of our students will be the first in their family to enroll in college. And as a result, they need supports beyond just the financial scholarship supports to enroll in college. And we provide that to our students, to any student who applies for Tennessee Promise and files their FAFSA. We provide that in the form of a volunteer mentor. That's someone from their community who is essentially just committing 1 hour per month to make sure that student is supported, has someone to turn when they have questions, has somewhere to turn when they have questions, and is just in a good spot related to the college going process. So mentoring is a big piece of the work we do here at tnAchieves. We also, though, understand that we want a little bit of students to have a little bit of skin in the game. If they're going to receive financial support to go to college, if they're going to receive community support, we want them to have a little bit of skin in the game. And we ask them to do that in the form of community service. Every semester, a student is enrolled and receives Tennessee Promise. They are required to complete and submit 8 hours of community service to maintain their eligibility. So this is a big part of our program, and it's something that we've asked students to do since our program was founded and to this very day, because again, we feel it's important that students give back a little bit and have a little bit of skin in the game. We're also always looking, though, to making sure students are graduating and making sure students are finishing. A big piece of the work we do is making sure students are accessing college, making sure they're starting their college career. However, it's not enough just to start. They need to finish and they need to get a degree or credential to make sure we're making the progress we need. So a couple things we're doing to address completion, to address students finishing college. One is we offer a series of summer programming that targets some of our most academically at-risk students in the summer between their senior year of high school and their freshman year of college. These programs last anywhere from 3 to 10 weeks, and essentially they provide the opportunity for students who may be testing into some learning support classes their first semester to potentially test out of those classes over the summer months. Many students will test out of those classes during these programs. However, what we see consistently is even if they aren't able to quite test out, what they are able to do is improve their scores and leave feeling more college ready and more confident about college. Keeping in mind that, again, these are academically at-risk students, they are much more prone to, in their first few weeks of college, feeling overwhelmed, feeling anxious, and just feeling a little iffy about the entire experience. But what these summer programs allow those students to do is build that college-going confidence in the summer in a less high-pressure environment so that when they actually do start in the fall, they're ready to hit the ground running. We also have started offering in the past 2 years a program that we're calling Complete. This is a proactive coaching program that has identified our economically at-risk students, and we've paired them with a coach on our team whose full-time job it is to reach out to them proactively during their college career and make sure that they stay on the path towards college graduation. And that those obstacles that they may encounter, those hurdles that they may encounter, don't become full roadblocks in them graduating. And instead, we can easily catch them early and help them to overcome them. That way, the student's never at risk for stopping to attend classes or dropping out entirely. On both of these programs, we're going to share a little bit of retention data here in just a few slides, but these are certainly additional layers of support that we're always looking to add for students so that we can improve their likelihood of retaining and ultimately graduating from college. Now, before I shift into some of our more local community-focused data, what I do want to do is just provide a little bit of insight into the scope of our work, the counties we're serving, as well as the students we're serving. Like I mentioned earlier, we are serving 90 counties across the state right now. 74 of those counties are considered rural counties, and 35 are considered economically at-risk or distressed counties, according to the Department of Economic and Community Development. We serve over 600 high schools, 67 colleges, and I think the really interesting piece of this slide is around where our students are enrolling in college. So 11% of our students are going to enroll at a TCAT. That statistic is actually up from when Tennessee Promise was first introduced. However, we would love to see this number increase even more in the years to come. The TCATs, for those who aren't familiar, are the Tennessee Colleges of Applied Technology, and they represent a fantastic opportunity for students, particularly a student who, may be on the fence about college, but wants to earn a degree or credential and enter the workforce. TCATs provide them the opportunity to do so fairly quickly and start earning that wage, giving back, and entering the workforce fairly quickly after they finish high school, while still doing so with a post-secondary credential in hand. Now, we see that 79% of our students will enroll at a community college and 10% at a four-year college pursuing an associate's degree. So certainly as we look at this, community college is the popular path for our students. But like I mentioned, we've seen gains in the TCAT space, and we hope to see those gains continue in the years to come because, regardless, I think, of where they enroll, what we see here is there are fantastic opportunities and fantastic post-secondary routes for any student who wants to use Tennessee Promise, whether it's a community college, whether it's a TCAT, or one of those four-year institutions that offers an associate's degree. We can help them to plug into an opportunity that meets their post-secondary academic career goal needs. Speaking a little more specifically to the Tennessee Achieves students, we are able to work each and every year with 60,000 students across the state who apply for Tennessee Promise. That represents 89% of all Tennessee high school seniors are Tennessee Achieves students at some point. 78% of all first-time freshmen at our community colleges are Tennessee Achieves students, and 86% of all community college graduates in the state of Tennessee are Tennessee Achieves students. I think what these two data points show particularly is that Tennessee Achieves students are making up a significant number of the students who are starting at our community colleges, and even more so graduating at our community colleges, which is something we're proud of. These are students who are at one point impacted by our programming, and we're happy to see this. A little bit about the students themselves. 56% are eligible for federal financial aid, meaning they tend to fall into the low income category. And 40% of our students are report that they're the first in their family to go to college. I'll tell you, the first generation low income student, that's a student that we have always really targeted at Tennessee Achieves, and we continue to work to meet that student's needs to this day. That's the student who may need a little bit of extra support, may really lean on the scholarship funding to pursue college. We always want to make sure that we're keeping them in mind in our work. I would also add that 51% of our students are majoring in health science and STEM related fields. These are fields where there is career demand right now. There is certainly a need for students in the health sciences right now. So we're happy to see our students engaging in these fields and pursuing careers in these fields. $32 million, that's the cost annually in scholarship dollars from Tennessee Promise. Now, Tennessee Achieves' operating cost is just $2.5 million. Which, when you consider that we're serving 89% of all high school seniors, more than 60,000 students annually, we're pretty proud of that annual operating cost, that we're able to have a pretty significant impact on these students without necessarily breaking the budget, without having a huge budget to impact those students, but we're still able to do so. Now, I do want to pause here before I jump into some DeKalb County specific data and just ask if there's any questions or anything I can go further into. No? All right. Well, I'll keep rolling here. So as we look at DeKalb County specifically, one thing I want to jump in on is your FAFSA filing data. So the FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. It's one of the most fundamentally important documents in a student going to college, because this is how they're going to certainly receive Tennessee Promise, but receive any other federal and state aid that they may qualify for. And in DeKalb County, your students are filing the FAFSA at a rate of about 84%. Statewide, that number is 86%. So you're right there. It's just a 2-point difference, nothing significant. And it could just be, quite honestly, a difference of a couple students filing their FAFSA the next year. The FAFSA, for those of you who are familiar with it, is not easy to complete. It is a cumbersome document, especially for a first-generation college student, someone who's never had anyone do it before. It takes time and it can be confusing. So creating a culture around the FAFSA where it is an expectation and we're surrounding students with supports to get this done, that's important to us at Tennessee Achieves, and we've been grateful to have a lot of community and counselor and school district support over the years in making this possible. Also want to talk just a little bit about that community service component. In DeKalb County, more than 7,000 hours of community service have been completed locally, 3.3 million hours of community service across the state. This is something we're really proud of. I think it's one of the lesser talked about components of this program, but to see students locally and statewide volunteering at such high rates, likely higher rates than they would be otherwise, we're proud of. And hopefully you're seeing the benefits of that community service in your community. Speaking a little more specifically as well about some of your student and graduation and retention data, DeKalb County had 129 students apply for Tennessee Promise. And we also saw that about 48 students enrolled using Tennessee Promise against more than 17,000 across the state. A really bright spot here is your retention rate. Your students are retaining at a rate of 79%, which is 12 points higher than the statewide total percentage there, excuse me. Now, graduation rate is falling a bit behind the statewide number of 35%, but certainly we're seeing some positive trends in retention, and hopefully as we pull this data in the future, we see that spill over into graduation numbers as well. But I do want to share a little bit more about how some of the programming we're offering to students is helping to positively impact certainly retention, but also hopefully graduation numbers in the future. Before I jump in on that though, what I do want to do is just provide some context around what these retention and graduation numbers represent. 67% of Tennessee Achieve students at Tennessee Promise eligible institutions retain in their first to second year. That's 14% higher than students who are not participating in the Tennessee Achieves program. Now, 74% of our students at any community college are retaining, and that's 21 points higher than their peers who don't participate in our program. I think another really bright spot is in the graduation number, because 51% of Tennessee Achieves students at community colleges are graduating. And, certainly we want that number to improve even further. We don't want to just be content at 51% by any stretch of the imagination, but it is positive growth from where we started. And when you consider too that number is 16% higher than students who are not a part of the tnAchieves program, we're pretty happy with the impact that this program and this opportunity is having for our students. What it just shows is, I think, that when students have these additional supports, when they have the scholarship funding, they're able to focus a lot more consistently on staying in school, being a successful student, and being just academically all around sound, as opposed to how am I going to pay for next semester, or where do I turn when I need help. So I do think this shows some of the positive impacts that this programming is having on some of the key data that we need to look at, which is retention and graduation. Like I said earlier, we offer those additional programs for students as well, those summer programs for those academically at-risk students, as well as the complete model for students who are economically at risk. And those programs are having a really positive impact on retention since we introduced them. For example, students who participate in a summer program are 34% more likely to retain than their peers who do not. And students who participate in the complete program are 23% more likely to retain than their peers who are not coached. So really, positive signs of success with these programs. And we also have a new program in Knox County, which has taken some local dollars and it's introduced coaching for every student in Knox County, which means a member of our staff checking in on students frequently during their college career. And it's also introduced some additional financial support for students who may need financial support, whether it's for a transportation issue to classes, maybe it's something they need for class, whatever it may be. We can help those students out in some situations. Those students who are part of that program are retaining at a rate about 42% higher than their peers who are not. So certainly at tnAchieves, I'll tell you, we're always looking at these sort of additional programs and additional layers of support that we can add for students to make sure that, again, they're not just starting college, but they're ultimately finishing it and leaving with a degree or credential in hand. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about the opportunity, or really the call to action that I think we all see in the coming year. Tennessee Promise, when it was introduced in 2014, saw significant gains in college going across the state. And we held pretty steady there every year thereafter. But what the pandemic has done is it's caused college going rates in 2020 really to take a hit. And it did so locally as well. In DeKalb County, we saw about a 3% change in college going from 2019 to 2020. So certainly not as drastic as we see on the statewide level, but we want to do everything possible in the coming year to shift this back in the right direction. We don't want to see this become a trend of college going continue to decrease. We need to make forward progress and start going back up in this space. And frankly, we cannot do this alone at tnAchieves. Working with 60,000 students annually, I think one of the biggest difference makers we're going to see in getting this college going rate back up is personal supports and it's personal encouragement. And I think that the mentoring piece particularly is going to be a big part of this. Mentors have always been asked to serve three fundamental roles for students. It's being a task manager, being a resource, and being an encourager. Being a taskmaster manager, is all about, making sure students are on the right track, making sure they're meeting their deadlines. Being a resource is particularly for that student who may have no one else to turn to in the college going process, someone who's just there to help with their questions and that the student can trust to go to when they're feeling a little bit vulnerable. We also have the encourager piece as well. And I come to this one last because ultimately, I really do believe this is going to be the most critical role that our mentors serve, certainly in getting college going rates back up. I think many students, especially in the year where they faced a pandemic, where they continue to face a pandemic, feel down, they feel a little burnt out, and they're not sure if they want to continue in going to college. They're not sure if it's worth it anymore. A mentor is someone who can encourage the student and help them over those obstacles and help them to realize their full potential and why this is something that's worth it. We can't provide that personal encouragement to all the students we serve. But when you consider that we recruit 9,000 mentors every year, we are able to have that positive impact, and we're eager to start serving the class of 2022 with this support. In 2022, mentoring is going to continue to include some of the components we've always known, as well as some subtle changes. For example, we're going to continue to ask that mentors contact their students bi-weekly using call, text, our virtual mentoring platform, tnAchieves Connect as well. Staying in contact with students is one of the most important things that mentors can do. But we're also going to ask that mentors meet with their students, as we always have, but we're going to give mentors the choice in how they make this possible. So if mentors prefer to stay virtual, if they're more comfortable staying virtual, they can do so and meet with their students using that virtual mentoring platform. But we've also heard mentor feedback that says, we want to get back to in person. We want to see our students in person. So for that reason, we're going to offer open house style sessions in the spring where mentors can invite their students to meet with them at a location tnAchieves coordinates and sets up, and you can get to know your students on a face-to-face basis. Really, however mentors want to meet with their students, we're going to work to accommodate in 2022, because at the end of the day, our goal is facilitating those positive connections. Whether it's at our open house, whether it's virtual, we want to provide the resources to make that possible. But I do want to stress, mentoring is still going to take just 1 hour per month. Not a huge time commitment, but I really, truly do believe that in the coming year, this role is going to offer a lot of value to our students, and we're going to work to make those connections even more impactful as we shift into kind of this hybrid in-person virtual model. In DeKalb County, we need 20 mentors this year. I'll tell you, we are already hard at work to start finding those mentors and to meet that need, to make sure that every student locally has a local support system in place. If you're interested in joining us as a mentor, if you know someone who might be interested, you can send them to tnAchieves.org/mentors. The deadline to apply is December 3rd of 2022. Excuse me, not 2022, 2021. So got about three and a half months here until the deadline. But like I said, we're hard at work to meet this mentor need and make sure everyone has the supports they need. But I do want to share too, there are a couple additional ways to support this work. The progress we've made, both in DeKalb County, across the state, the work that we're doing, it's not possible if not for community support and groups like this who are willing to just hop on a call and learn a little bit more about our work. So certainly becoming a mentor is a great way to support students locally and our program, but you can also just connect tnAchieves in the community. If you know of an organization or a group in town that might be interested in hearing this data update, they might be interested in this tnAchieves story and the impact of mentoring, you can email mentors@tnachieves.org, and we would be happy to provide information, resources, or even set up a date and time when we can share this with them. You can also just tell someone about Tennessee Promise. If you know a student who's interested know a high school senior, make sure they submit their application. Make sure they get that in. If you know someone interested in giving back an hour a month, interested in volunteering in the community, tell them about the mentoring role. One thing we'll never be able to replace is just the word of mouth power that comes from active volunteers and active stakeholders sharing this program in their community. It's such a critical piece of our work, and we're tremendously appreciative to anyone who gets the word out about this. But I just want to wrap up by saying thank you to everyone who's hopped on this call, to everyone who's taken the time out of their day to hear this data update and hear a little bit about the work we're doing as it stands in 2021. We are really excited to start working with the class of 2022. As we saw, the college going rates have dipped. Obviously, the pandemic has had a pretty significant impact on students and their post-secondary pursuits. We're eager to start working with the class of 2022 and make that pivot back in the right direction, but we need all the help we can get to make that possible. So if you have any questions, if you'd like to follow up on anything, you can email me or call me. My number and email is on the screen. And I just want to say again, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time. And if you've got any questions, I'm more than happy to take those.
Hey, Tyler, it's Clint. Just wanted to say hello and thank you for your work. You're obviously, I assume you're doing this for all probably 90 counties that you're involved in. So keep the water flowing, it sounds like. So
gotta stay hydrated.
Yes. So, well, I guess this way it's better on your car doing that necessarily. You can do it kind of virtually. So, I was just going to check in. Had a couple of observations or questions. Really enjoyed my time being a mentor, and I look forward to continuing to do that as long as I can. Obviously, This last year has been really challenging, but it seems like that with the overall kind of drop in college going participation, I guess, are there plans maybe to add, I don't want to say more staff, but more engagement, I think, at the school, at the high school level. I think at our high school, maybe we have one guidance counselor for, I don't know how many are in the senior class, but I mean, there's roughly 900 kids in the 4th grade. So if you divide that up, that ratio is not too good. So I know that that's a need. It sounds like, and I'm not saying kids don't know about it. I'm just saying that, if they're not kind of constantly nudged, we'll put it that way, then they don't really, go forward with it. So is that any sort of possibility there?
I can only really I can't speak to, whether or not more counselors will be added or anything like that. But on our end, with the work we're doing, I think one of the big things that we lost in 2021 in our ability to get this out to students was we weren't able to see them in person at any point. We are going to be hosting, fingers crossed, as long as everything shifts in the right direction here, in-person assemblies for our high school seniors at every high school we serve in November and December. When we pull them together, we talk to them about college. We talk to them about what they need to do to not only stay Tennessee Promise eligible, but just to go to college in general. And we're also, we are always, not always, but, we've added staff as well within the past few months to work to better support students as they kind of navigate this process. I think that one of the challenges in 2021 was for many students, they weren't in school for a lot of the year in some communities. And what that caused was, I think part of the power in getting students to go to college was hearing their friends talk about it, hearing others talk about the steps they were taking. And if you didn't see them in the hallway, if you didn't see your guidance counselor really at all, you lost that. So hopefully as students start to get back onto campus and start to get back there, that's kind of reconnected, hopefully.
I completely agree. And my kind of last point was that I really think kudos should go to, Governor Lee and the legislature just to really continue to support this program. I mean, obviously, Governor Haslam had an initial part in this, and it's really been, and of course, Randy Boyd, who is a good personal friend and just a wonderful person. And it takes vision and investment and the drive to 55 and all those kind of things. And I think they are really to be commended for these types of investments that they're making. They're not just spending money; these are investments. And it may seem like a small dent sometimes, but it's making real differences. And I'm glad that there's a renewed focus on 2-year community colleges and TCATs. I work in an industry where we would love to have more LPNs and more RNs and things like that. And this gets them to start that journey, and it's just so vital. So I'm just so appreciative. And last kind of question, because I don't want to take everybody's time, but is just to suggest, first of all, that unfortunately, DeKalb County, we don't have a lot of community organizations. That's really kind of a difficult thing for me. We used to have a Rotary Club that, kind of met regularly. That's kind of gone by the wayside last year, and there's just not really any members. Might suggest maybe speaking at a county commission meeting or a school board meeting. Might, that kind of is the most that probably the community gets together, unfortunately. Yeah. So that might be a suggestion. But update, if you real quick, just on the 4-year college programs that are out there. I know, like Tennessee Tech, I think, started a Tech Promise, if I'm not mistaken. And if there's others around the state, I know those have kind of rapidly changed and they're very localized, but I know they have some effect, especially with our proximity to Tech.
Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, they are, like ETSU, for example, offers a promise program. There are a lot of individual college promise programs, and the UT system as well has introduced a UT promise as well, which is targeted at students receiving the Hope Scholarship that our organization is helping to kind of administer in the communities. But one of the exciting things, I think, about the introduction of Tennessee Promise is we have seen this spill over into the 4-year space, and we have seen colleges kind of shift some of their scholarship models to meet what we've been doing on the community college level, which is, one thing that's done too is now we can look more at like transfer options for our students and those sort of further scholarship supports that are out there. So I think we've seen that really increase in the past year or two, particularly those sort of programs. But they're certainly out there, and they're certainly becoming far more prevalent.
Great. Well, definitely a rising ship, helps everybody. So
it does indeed.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions or anything on the call? All right. Well, I want to thank you all for joining us today. And like I said, if I can do anything to help, if you've got any follow-up questions, just shoot me an email, reach out via phone. I am always happy to help. But we appreciate you hopping on today and hope you have a great afternoon.